Good evening, everyone. I didn't work at all. Thanks, everyone, for coming. If you would like to take your seats, that'd be awesome. Sit down. Hey. Stop him. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Massive thanks to the folks at Cloudflare for hosting us, feeding and drinking us, providing drink, I guess. Yeah, thank you very much. We've got an agenda. That's it, pretty much. Without further ado, I'll step out of the way.
Hi everyone, I'm Naya. I work along with Wayne at Cloudflare. We're the two-person IT department in London. So let me present actually. Not to the pub yet. Okay, so that's the title, past and present. So I've started working with Cloudflare since September last year, 2018. So it's been 9 months now. And since I've started, basically Cloudflare has grown a lot in London from about 120 people. We're now 250. We've moved offices, and as a result, we can understand that Cloudflare has grown a lot. So it was a nice time to change the IT procedures as well, the processes, like how we do, for example, the IT orientation. So orientation is when basically everyone that is hired by Cloudflare flies over to San Francisco for 1 week of Cloudflare induction. And as you can imagine, the first session might be how basically you get your laptop and how it's set up. So how we used to do it is what used to happen during orientation is we have normally at these sessions between 20 and 30 new employees. And we're quite blessed that everyone that joins Cloudflare gets a new laptop. So, and 80 to 90% of laptops are MacBook Pros. But unfortunately, we didn't use any imaging processes. So basically, here's your laptop, set it up yourself. So this process used to take about 3 to 4 hours. And as you can imagine, no one is joining the IT department, not always. Sometimes many of the employees are in sales so they're not very tech savvy. So setting up your local account or a password might require some thinking or thought. So following about 36 slides of going through how to set up your laptop, following instructions how long your password should be and what security settings you need to follow, and how to enable file vault might take a while. So just then imagine you're starting, you go through all the slides, and then you have to go to Safari and start downloading Chrome or Cisco AnyConnect or Google Chat and stuff like that. The other thing is, so you're an employee and you want to get a new application. So what do? So you log a ticket with IT, and for example, if someone wanted to have VMware Fusion, we just shared the package with Google Drive, or we just provided the link for them to go to the website and download the software, and of course the serial key. And now imagine if someone is requesting a laptop for replacement, or their laptop is broken. So they have to go all the process again to using setup assistant, setting up the local account, setting up security settings, and getting, again, approvals for the licensed software. The other thing is that we use travel kits. So we have lots of employees that travel around. They're going to risky, dangerous zones like conferences, like DEF CON. Yeah, so travel kits are basically burner laptops that they get wiped. And this is all managed by IT. So what used to happen? So we used to get the laptop, put it into recovery, wipe the HD, reinstall the OS, go through the setup, create the account, apply the security settings, and install all the apps. Now imagine if we had 8 people going to one conference at the same time, how much time it would take. So what did we do to make our lives easier? So we started using Okta and Jump. We use Okta for directory services, for example, security groups, and we use Jump for our Mac fleet. So what did we manage to achieve with Jump Pro? We have now zero-touch deployment for all our new laptops. It's easier to deploy applications. We deploy and manage better security settings, and we base security settings depending on if it's a travel kit or if it's just a normal employee. And it's easier to manage our Mac fleet and automate some processes. So what happens now during orientation? We still have 20 to 30 new starters. Oh, I have to say this happens every 2 weeks. So yeah. And again, still 90 to 80%, of our laptops are still MacBook Pros. And we use now the DEP and DEP Notify to help them go through the setup assistant and install all the apps on their Mac. So what happens now when we deploy applications? It's easier to manage the apps with Okta security groups. Packages are again deployed through Jump self-service, and we don't share any license keys. And again, when someone requests a new laptop, we do use DEP and DEP Notify to help them set up their new laptop. All the standard apps and security settings are applied in the background, and they can install all the licensed apps because they're already in the group or in Okta. So with travel kits, we use the red button policy from Jump and the erase install flag to automate the process through Jump self-service. And app security settings are downloaded and deployed through Jump. And the settings that are applied are based on Okta security groups. So I think I went too fast. But yeah, so what will the future bring? Cloudflare is growing a lot, and we want to bring more automation on the rest of IT processes, like, I don't know, depending on your department, be able to download the software straight away, assigned to you, like from day one, to have better user experience, and we have less time to set up things. That's it. Any questions? Yeah?
That sounds like a very forward-thinking and suitable onboarding process. What do you do at the other end of life cycle? What happens when someone's replacing a laptop because they've decided they need a new one? What's your process to make that seamless?
So basically, we treat our laptops as, I don't want to say as burner laptops in general, so nothing is supposed to be saved on your local computer, but most of the users do so. So we don't we don't have backups of the local machine. So basically everything is browser based, so they're good to go as soon as they sign in to our preferred browser.
Hi, you mentioned the conference DEF CON, and I'm acutely aware of exactly how dangerous an environment that is. I was wondering if you could expand on your burn a laptop and what quarantine you do when these things come back from such a hostile environment.
Yes, so this is a bit security related, but yeah, so basically the laptops that we provide for these kind of situations, they're not personal devices, they're not employee devices, they're devices that basically are not touching our network. I hope that covers your answer, because I don't think I can say more than that. Yeah. But the thing is that, for example, because we have lots of employees and we're now, we have 4 or 5 offices in US and 2 offices to become 3 in Europe. So traveling, it's not just conferences, don't see it as conferences, see it as more like countries as well. So yeah, you can understand that when you're a company that has interests in other countries, yeah, you might be a bit careful as well. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So what % of your devices are still outstanding without having Jamf on them?
I think we don't have that many devices left without Jamf now. We rolled out Jamf in March this year, and I think we have 90% of our fleet in Jamf. So our users are quite security aware and tech savvy when it has to do with compliance, because they have to follow the rules.
So your end users, are there a lot of developers and that type of ilk, I presume? Folks
Sorry?
that, a lot of developers or people that are going to be, wanted to be admins and develop
Yeah.
code on their machines. How have they, there's been some people I've spoke to where those type of people have been resistant to having a management system on their device. How has that been with your end users? How's that been received by them being managed by Jamf?
I think Wayne doesn't like that question. Yeah, so yes, there is, I mean, when I believe like when IT tries to apply any new processes, or when you basically try to be compliant with certain things, there are always users that are a bit resistant to do so. But the thing is that basically we are in a company and you need to follow, yeah, you need to be compliant. So for example, each machine has file vault enabled, or like basically locks your laptop immediately. So it's something that you need to follow. Yes, there is resistance, but we're trying to persuade them to do so.
One related to Ben's question: do you use any privilege management software to not necessarily give people full admin access, but okay, you can run this, you can run that?
No, we don't.
Damn it! Anybody?
Me again.
Come on, it's my first presentation in 10 years, so
It went very well. What's your test and validation plan thoughts around Catalina?
Yeah, we still have apps that are 32 bits, so yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it.
Obviously, due to NDA, you can't talk about it.
I mean, we're a security company, so operating system needs to be signed off from security. So, yeah, it's not just IT that decides for everything, how everything is done.
Cool. Well
Thank
done.
you. Yeah.
the screen though.
So you got that's mirroring that.
That's fine. That's cool. What's clicker? Oh, okay, fine. Okay. Cool. It's the LA notarization one. So top left, very top left one. Cool.
Brand.
Does it go back? No, yeah.
Yeah, greens go and reds go back.
Is that no? Can you switch it back? Sorry. Sorry? Not too far, yeah? Cool. So 6 weeks ago, this was a really good idea. I'm not so sure now. Not so sure. So we'll see how we go on. Okay. So I'm Richard Mallion. I work for dataJAR. So I bow to Ben over there. So I'm going to talk a bit about notarization. So it was actually announced a year ago, actually. So, but it's come to the foreground slightly with Catalina. So it will affect not just developers, but potentially IT admins. But there's no need to panic. Don't panic, as they say. Okay. So this is basically the agenda. So I'm going to have a quick overview of Gatekeeper to set the scene. So Gatekeeper is integral to this kind of new kind of process. Quick overview of notarization, and then we look at some of the workflows you can use to notarize your app. So you've got the Xcode workflow, and then there's this kind of workflow outside of Xcode for other items. Okay. We look at how you can check for notarization, make sure your app's notarized or whether third-party ones notarized. I've got a few resources, and then I'm going to run away for the Q&A. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Okay. So just quick overview about Gatekeeper first of all. So Gatekeeper's been around since 10.7, since it's Lion. Okay, so it's interesting 10.7.3. They added the GUI to 10.7.5. And basically, its whole purpose was to enforce code signing for apps you downloaded. So you would download apps from over the internet, and Gatekeeper would make sure those apps potentially are signed by a valid developer ID, basically. So one, it's for a known developer, and secondly, potentially tamper-proof because the app's been signed, basically. So we've had this for quite a while. Okay. Obviously, this is the UI that we see. So you have a few. Well, two options really now about where your kind of source apps can come from. So you've got choice of your Mac App Store, or the default is the App Store, and a known identified developer. So this is a developer, an app's been signed by a valid Apple ID, and potentially here Apple can potentially obviously revoke IDs if you have developers up to no good. And also, if the app is not signed, so it would get rejected, basically. So that's the kind of UI we got. And basically, it relies on the quarantine bit. So when you download a file over the internet, the app can set a quarantine bit. This is the com.apple.quarantine kind of attribute for the file. And any file that has that set on first launch, Gatekeeper will get involved and will check the validity of the developer ID and whether the app is signed, basically. So if you download things by Safari, Mail, Messages, those sort of apps, this quarantine bit gets set and Gatekeeper kicks in, basically. So that's kind of the idea behind it. And you've got various tools to view this attribute. There's a built-in command line tool called X attribute, which you can use to check for the quarantine bit. You can remove it with the bottom example, -R, -D, so you can actually name that attribute and remove it. So there's various tools to actually manipulate this bit. And we've probably seen most of these alerts by now. So if you download something and a quarantine bit gets set, this is the standard alert you get through Gatekeeper. So this is an app that's got a valid identity from a valid developer, and the user gets a choice of whether to kind of launch it, basically. And it's kind of a one-time run only. So once they committed to open this app, the quarantine bit gets reset, and Gatekeeper is no longer involved. Okay. This is what we see. If you get this, that means the app is not signed. Okay, so it hasn't been signed. There's no valid developer behind it. So Gatekeeper will reject it. Okay, so also an app called Pirates is probably a bit suspicious. Okay, so you might want to kind of reject that, basically. But also with things like other services like Xprotect, I can also check for kind of common malware, basically, or if the app's been tampered with, or even if the Apple kind of pulled the certificate for that developer because they're no longer trusted. So occasionally you may get this where a Gatekeeper doesn't trust the app, and it kind of forces you to kind of throw the app away, basically. That's kind of what we've got so far built into macOS. Okay. There are some tools to play around with Gatekeeper. We've got the SPCTL tool, and you can use it to check the status. You can turn on Gatekeeper. You can turn it off, but notice the X here. Because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it, okay? But you can also do things like, if you've got a known trusted app that hasn't been signed, you can add that as kind of a trusted app, so Gatekeeper can ignore it. You can remove that app again from the kind of assessment list. And later on, we'll look at the assessment command, where you can actually get this command line tool to actually assess whether Gatekeeper will actually trust an app before we actually launch it, basically. So you've got a few command line tools just to kind of manipulate Gatekeeper, okay. So notarization. So this was announced last year, actually. So it's actually been out for a year, okay. And this adds a new layer above Gatekeeper. It's basically another security layer. So Gatekeeper by default was designed to just check the validity of a certificate, whether that's been signed by a valid developer once it's been downloaded. Notarization is designed to actually check before distribution whether the app or the package or your DMG, anything you may download that contains code, whether that has got any malicious software in it, any malware, and whether it's correctly signed. That's the idea, basically. So it's literally another layer. So it kind of checks in advance whether this app is kind of trusted. So it was announced last year. That was optional for most developers. So most developers could play with this, but recent changes means now it's now being enforced to some extent. So since 10.14.5, notarization has now kind of crept in. So basically, for kernel extensions, new or updated kernel extensions must be notarized, okay? And new developers, so anyone who's signed up to the developer program after April has to notarize their apps, okay? But with the advent of Catalina, all software is going to be notarized, must be notarized to get past Gatekeeper. So this is only going to affect anything you download that has a kind of quarantine bit set, okay, where Gatekeeper kind of gets involved, okay. So the idea is it's designed to kind of block or to check for any malicious malware. It's a way of just checking that it's been code signed correctly. It's part of the developer program. So who's got a developer account out of interest? Excellent. So you all get access to this, okay? And it's an automated service. So this is not an app review, thank God, because then otherwise I'll probably get rejected over and over again, okay? I've got a really bad track record at the moment. So basically, the notified service is basically a way you can upload your package, your application. It's an automated check for various security checks on the app, and then it gets passed back to say yes or no, basically. So it's fully automated, and it's pretty quick, actually. On average, it's been taking about 15 minutes or so for our apps to get past this service, basically. So it's really, really quick. It's really good. Okay. So basically what happens is if you've got a package, an application, DMG, anything that's got code in it, before you distribute it, so you kind of finalized it, before you distribute it, you will pass it up to the notary service. Apple will do their checks on it for malware and the code sign-in. And then if it all passes okay, it will generate a ticket that will get passed back to you. And this ticket just kind of rubber stamps the validity of that application as far as Apple is concerned, okay? And there are two versions, or there's two locations for this ticket. One you staple to your app somehow, and one is published in the cloud for Gatekeeper to get access to, okay? So you have two sources. So obviously, the version that's stapled with the app means Gatekeeper can look locally on that app for this ticket and make sure the app is valid. If you've got no internet connection, which may be a situation you kind of face, then it can check back in the cloud, or back to Apple, to see whether there's a valid ticket to indicate this app's been notarized. Okay. We'll look at stapling it later on, basically. So that's kind of how it works, okay. So basically, if you download an app now and Gatekeeper kicks in, it looks for this ticket. And one of the obvious ways you can check whether it's been notarized or whether this new service is kind of kicking in, you get a slightly different alert now. So when you get this alert now, don't read that, but it actually does say now that this app is checked by Apple, and there's no malicious kind of code in it, basically, or none was detected in that way, basically. So they kind of expand the standard kind of Gatekeeper. Also, based on requirements, if the app is not notarized, and it needs to be notarized, then Gatekeeper will reject it like it would an unsigned app. Okay. Like so. So these are the sort of things you can notarize. Obviously macOS apps, kernel extensions, disk images, packages, the contents of zip files, and we'll look at this in a second. So anything that kind of has code, you can kind of notarize, and you will need to if you deploy in these items and Gatekeeper kind of gets involved. Okay. So what are the benefits? Well, obviously, it helps developers helps them stop shipping malicious code. There have been examples where good developers have shipped applications with malware unknown to them built in, so they've stopped that. One of the advantages of certainly macOS apps is you have to enable something called the hardened runtime, and this adds another layer of security that the app will implement basically on the Hardy. So for instance, it will stop the app from running kind of modified code, so you can't modify the code it's running. It will stop it running kind of unsigned libraries, etc. So it just adds another kind of layer of security for that. Hopefully users get to trust apps more they download, okay? And also developers can actually get an audit trail. So they can actually get an audit trail of all the apps they notarized and kind of get that kind of track record basically. Okay. So one of the key parts is obviously signing. Okay, so you need to sign everything now to get the app notarized, all the contents. So if you've got an Apple developer account, you can get these signing certificates. So for app bundles, you need to create a developer ID application certificate. If you're going to sign your packages, that needs an installer certificate, and disk images will fall back to the application certificate. So everything needs to be signed by your valid developer ID, okay, before you can notarize it. So how do we notarize it? Well, there's kind of two workflows really. You have the Xcode workflow, which is really good for notarizing Mac apps. And then you've got maybe a workflow where you want to notarize packages or DMGs, things like that basically. So I've got some screenshots of an app I built just to show you how Xcode behaves. So once imagine you've got your code, your application built, and you're kind of ready to distribute it. There's kind of an archive workflow in Xcode. So this will basically build the app and give you the .app file or bundle out of that code. So that's compiled application. And then you get a chance to distribute the app. So we can decide to distribute the app. And also, if you can do a Mac OS app for the Mac App Store, you can upload it to the Mac App Store where you get kind of reviewed. Sorry. But for distributing outside the Mac App Store, we would choose developer ID. So this is going to export it and notarize it. So you do developer ID. Now we could do an export, which is literally just sign the app, but not notarize it. So we're going to do an upload, which is going to sign it and send it to Apple for notarization. We're going to get Xcode to sign it with our certificates. We get a summary. Okay, so you can see as an example, it's going to use my application developer certificates. Okay, what platform it's for, any entitlements. We do an upload. So Xcode uploads it to Apple's notary services. Okay, and now it's in the clouds. And Apple have now got this automated process where it's going to now analyze your application for any malware or security issues. Okay. So while it's up in the cloud, Xcode can keep track of this. So you can see at the moment the status of this application is processing. When it's ready, Xcode will be told that it's ready to distribute. Okay. So it's now ready. And then we can just do an export. Down here, we've got an export. So we can now export that application and it's fully notarized. And we're now safe in the knowledge that it gets passed through Gatekeeper, etc. Okay. You also get bombarded with an email, so Apple will email you to say it's been notarized, and you get push notification to Xcode. So yeah, it's pretty quick. And generally, it's been about 15 minutes to actually get through this process. So it's pretty quick. So Xcode's really easy, but also there's things you might want to notarize like packages and DMGs. So there's a whole workflow you can build up that with some command line tools that Apple supply. So if you've got to do a custom workflow, you can use the command line tool. So the first thing you might want to do is pick the correct version of Xcode. So you need Xcode 10 or higher. So 11's in beta, but obviously 10 is the current version. So you can select your version of Xcode using Xcode Select. And then we have a built-in tool called AL Tool. This will let you notarize your package, your DMGs, etc. Okay. So in this example, we're going to upload a package to Apple to get notarized. We're going to run AL Tool. We're going to ask it to notarize an app. We're going to pass it the unique identifier for this application, this package. -- file points to the package we want to upload, and then we can pass our developer name password to that process. There's one thing to watch out for. This needs a unique app password for this tool. Okay, so you need to go appleid.app.com to generate a unique password for this account, basically, for this tool. So this will upload the package, this example, to Apple. You get, if it successfully uploads, you get an ID back. So this ID is your unique reference to that particular application and that in notarization. Okay, so that's now in the cloud. Any point you can query this, so you can run the AL tool to get the information back. So all you do is pass it the ID you have and your credentials, and you'll get back some information about whether it's still in process or whether it's failed, been rejected, or whether it's been successful. So in this example, you can see what messages it's been approved, and you are passed a unique URL to a JSON kind of log file with more information about that particular notarization. So that can be quite important if it's failed for some reason. So you can kind of go there and just kind of get why it failed maybe. So you can check the status. And then at this point, it's been notarized. So Apple have now generated this unique tickets to say the app has been notarized, or the DMG. That's been stored in the cloud. But you also want to have a local version stapled to that software, so you have a local copy in case the Mac has no internet connection. So you can use the stapler command, which is a really cool name, and you can staple the ticket to that particular item, basically. Okay, and then it can be distributed as you wish, basically. Okay. One exception, so you can staple to things like packages, DMGs. One exception is zip files. Okay, so you can't actually staple the zip file, but you can staple its contents. You'd have to unzip it, get the contents out, staple it, and then kind of rezip it basically up again, and it's ready to go. Okay. So you've got a whole workflow for anything other than kind of native Mac OS apps. Okay. If you want to check the validity of your kind of notarization, there's a validate command, and you can just run that over to make sure that it's been stapled correctly, and gives you kind of reassurance it'll work correctly. Okay. If you want to check for notarization, so this might be your content, it might be third-party content. If you want to check if it's been notarized, we can go back to the SPCTL tool that Gatekeeper has, and you can do the assess for both command, pass in the app or the DMG or the package. So in this is an example of checking an application. So you just pass in the app, and it's going to it give you 3 results. So if the app's been notarized, you get the first result. So it's a notarized developer ID. If it's only been signed, then it gets the developer ID. And if it gets rejected, because it doesn't pass any of those kind of rules, then also it's rejected. So you can check apps, yours or third parties. If you want to do packages, it's the same command, but you just do -- type install and pass in the package, and you get the result back of the package. A DMG is a bit more convoluted. You have to basically open it and ask it to look for the primary signature. But again, it can just verify that package is notarized, etc. So this is the kind of built-in Gatekeeper tool. If you've got some binary that's been kind of notarized, then you can use the built-in code sign tool that Apple ship your Xcode just to, again, check whether that's been notarized as well, basically. So you've got various tools. So there's no reason why you couldn't create kind of your own automated kind of processes here. Okay. This is quite a good tool. So if you're not a fan of kind of command line, this is a tool I've come across. It basically lets you check various aspects of an application. So one of the things you can do is open an app up, and you've got like a notarization flag, so you see if it's been notarized. But the other thing it can do is you can check what entitlements the app requires. Now, whether it needs access to the camera or whatever it may be, basically. So if you're creating those PPC mobile config files to grant access to the application for the privacy, you can at least have a guess that, this will show you what the app expects. So it's a free tool. You at the bottom is where you can download it, and I use this a lot actually. But it's been really useful for the kind of notarization kind of check if I'm a bit lazy. Okay. Like so. If you are a developer, you can check your history. So you can run the A tool to get a history of all your notarizations, etc. So that's a good way to check what you've been doing, kind of history of your kind of accounts. That's all kind of built in as well. Okay. So other resources. There's a really good talk at WWDC this year. So it's called All About Notarization. So that goes into a bit more detail. Okay. So definitely worth recommending watching that. So that's really good. Also, Apple have got some really good documentation. In the developer sites, they've got a whole section on how to notarize your apps. And then the last two are kind of third party. So the third one is the company who built that last app I showed you that shows you notarization. So they've got some examples of workflows of notarizing command line tools inside zip files. They've got some really kind of unusual kind of workflows, and they've got some really good tools as well out there for free. So that's definitely worth a watch. And then for any AppleScript fans, Richard Troughton has got like a document on how he notarized an automate application. Okay, so it shows you it's quite versatile. Okay, so but if you now Google, there's hundreds of resources out there on this, so pretty much open out there now, really. That's it, really. So that's kind of a 101 on notarization. Any questions? Oh, I know it. No, bye. See ya. No. Be gentle. Be gentle.
I have questions.
Questions? You could have asked them in the pub earlier on.
So, if we deploy these apps via root or something, will this trigger notification?
No. So it's only things that will trigger Gatekeeper. So if something's downloaded, maybe one as non-admin or an admin, that hits the quarantine bit. So if you run it as root, and I've tested this, I've run the installer app with root and it doesn't kick in. So things like Monkey, if you deploy by Monkey, Gatekeeper doesn't get involved. So this one, it really applies to you. Is that what you wanted to hear?
Was that the question you guys wanted to answer, really? Yeah?
Yeah, so if you're on a Monkey, Gatekeeper doesn't get involved, so this won't affect you as such. Yeah. No. But, however, what I would say, though, is we are still notarizing our internal apps for best practice. Even though we're not hitting this Gatekeeper, we are still notarizing them just so that they're done. Yeah.
And so, one other question for you, Richard. What am I mostly writing in now?
Sorry?
What apps am I mostly writing in now? What language am I mostly writing my apps in now?
You should be writing, well, you should be writing Swift.
What am I mostly because of you now?
Your AppleScript.
Am I really writing AppleScript now, or I'm writing
Swift? You're Swift. No, Ben, I must admit, Ben has embraced the light side, and he's now a Swift developer. Him out the AppleScript world.
Come on, Ben, give it up. It's my turn.
So, oh, sorry.
Yeah, hi. So let me see if I get this straight, because I've basically got sort of two questions. And the first one's the nasty one, because I've spent a lot of time in places working on doing like continuous integration work. You know, with I forget the name of the app, but basically there's ways to have build servers off on the side and doing like automated compiles when people do like Git commits and stuff like that.
Xcode server, yeah.
Not so much Xcode server, some
other solutions,
other third-party tools, shall we say?
Okay.
So the way you've described the notarization process, it seems to me that would I be correct in assuming that you're going to have to do the manual method to make a lot of this stuff work if you're not using Xcode server?
Yes. So they've got the tools for it. Yes, exactly. And if you're doing things like packages and DMGs, then obviously you will have to fall back to these tools and use them. Yes.
So I guess that then leads into the next part of, would I be right assuming that notarization, you've got Gatekeeper signing the app and basically vouching for the developer, and notarization would therefore be vouching for that specific version of the app?
So basically Apple have detected no malicious code in it.
Yeah.
They vouch has been correctly signed.
Yeah.
And so it's just another level on top.
I guess what I'm asking is, are they going to be able to revoke specific versions of the app rather than the app as a whole?
Well, they can revoke the developer certificates, so you can actually.
Oh, yeah, well, we've seen that fairly recently in a fairly major way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not. That's a good question. Whether they can revoke a specific app. The problem is you stapled the ticket locally as well, which I think is the default. So you look local on the app first, it goes off to Apple. I might need to come back on that. I suspect you can't, but I suspect Apple can pull the certificate to actually block the developer. But then,
sorry, last one. I'll hand over to somebody else. I promise.
That's good.
You. Oh, shut up, Ben. Basically, you were saying that when the app is run, the machine is doing a check against its own internal sort of list, but it's also going off to basically Apple's cloud.
So basically, you get a ticket.
Yeah.
And that ticket is stapled with the app itself. Okay, so it checks for the ticket within the app.
Yeah.
Okay, if it can't find one, it will fall back to Apple to
Oh,
see
right.
one.
So it's a fallback
Yeah,
scenario.
because obviously there may be situations where the Mac hasn't got an internet connection,
Yes.
so you need something local. Yeah.
I was thinking more in terms of environments with insane network security policies.
But
like,
long as the app's
say, finance.
stapled, yeah. So if you use Xcode, that will staple it automatically.
Yeah.
If you use a custom, like the command line tools, you have to staple it yourself. So if you don't staple it
Yeah.
to the application, you're totally reliant on an internet connection being available.
Okay, so it's only in the last result.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Somebody else.
William,
I'm confused.
why are you confused? Shall I start again? 1 second, let's go back.
So you're saying that it only comes into play
Okay.
with an app that's got the quarantine.
Well, it's gatekeeper. So every time gatekeeper, yeah. Obviously, I think.
So if for instance you get the app through, I don't know, some other method, and you remove the you move the quarantine flag, does it come into
yeah.
come
So,
into play?
obviously,
I'm looking. The situation I'm thinking of is okay. So say for instance I download Google Chrome to put into Jamf self-service because I don't care, and I remove the
doesn't matter because Jamf will store it as root, so root doesn't. Yeah.
That's installing it, but then running it when the user goes to run it. Does anything happen at runtime?
Well, it depends how it's been packaged up. Just done correctly, shouldn't kick in. I can't vouch for any other sort of workflow, but yeah, if the quarantine bit is still on the application, when the user launches the application, then Gatekeeper will.
So it's first run as opposed to every run.
Well, no, it's the first time. So if they cancel that alert, the quarantine bit stays. So next time they launch the app, it kicks in again. If they OK the app, that's at that point the quarantine bit gets removed because the user is given permission to launch the application.
Okay, right. Okay, someone else.
But yeah, it's
purely
Gatekeeper. Yeah.
Just a quick one, Richard. Is that Magenta you're using?
Funny enough. Hey, there's always one. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Good.
What have you started? Spoilers. Spoilers. Don't look. Don't look. All right. I'm going to try to get through this reasonably quickly because I know last time I did a news segment, a lot of people had a nice little nap. Don't honestly blame you. Ben allegedly had a lot of pints, so I wasn't going to call anyone out, but never mind. So we touched on the idea of doing a little news segment because a few bits and pieces came out. I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. Don't mind doing that. Then realised what date this meetup was, what date WWDC was, and then I watched WWDC. So that was the first of many mistakes, or the latest in many mistakes. Anyway, so out with the old. I did a post about this recently. Plug. The Great Adobe Purge 19. So 8th of May, Adobe announced customers will no longer be licensed to use older versions of their CC suite. Generally speaking, this covers anything that's older than CC 2018 and leaves you at risks of claims of infringement by third parties. Again, covered in the blog post above, but if you don't want to change up to a newer version or you can't for whatever reason, speak to your Adobe rep, speak to your resellers, speak to your internal legal and compliance departments. There is possible rumours of some sort of exemption. Not quite sure how, but then Adobe aren't very clear on what the reasoning is for this, so bear that in mind. You're a scam. Legacy Apple portals. Apple deprecating their legacy portals, the deployment portal and the old VPP portal. Nice series of who's. I like it. So 1st of December of this year, those portals will be going. That's both the older VPP portal and the older deploy.apple.com portal. You'll need to migrate these to Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager before that date. It's quite a simple process, but definitely get it started sooner rather than later. It is unclear what would happen if you don't migrate over by that deadline. So you can't even migrate yourself after that point. If you have a spare 5 minutes, do it. If only there was someone in the room that might know better. Discussions for later, afterwards. Out with the old again, back to my Mac. So that allowed you remote access to your Macs for home users. And someone used it, I don't know. Well, not enough people apparently. That service was removed from Mojave, but last summer when that came out, but still did work on older OSs. As of the 1st of July, that service, got a week or two to go, that service will be shut off for older OSs as well. I mean, I just turned it off in most cases, so it didn't bother me either way. So the bit that caused me aggro, WWDC, what changed? Gotcha. Sweet. What can we talk about? Nothing. Seriously though, like the Mac admin Slack, we do have potentially Apple attending on occasion, maybe watching the streams, checking videos out afterwards. And we kind of like this whole London Blabbins thing. It's a good laugh. We enjoy it. So officially, there's not much we can really say publicly while standing here in front of cameras and live streams and in a public setting. But we are going to the pub afterwards, so just saying. In the meantime, I'm going to suggest some URLs for people to check out. At a later date, once the KBs and the information is publicly published, I'm sure we'll do some more sessions, maybe get some volunteers from the audience. So, the main keynote. Got QR codes for all this. Not sure if it's going to work there, but otherwise you've got the slides and these will be up somewhere after. iOS 13, separate iPad OS based on iOS 13, WatchOS 6, macOS 10.15 Catalina, and tvOS. That was in the public keynote. Don't you start. Quiet you. Hardware, new Mac Pro, new Apple Pro display. Link above has a keynote video and a summary of the changes from Apple. iOS 13, full dark mode, improvements to photos and cameras, sign in with Apple, much like you have your sign in with Facebook and Twitter options. Maps improvements, it definitely isn't exactly like Street View for Apple Maps, but it looked pretty cool, pretty smooth. More Memoji customizations. Sweet. And now you can get sticker packs for your Memojis. Swipe keyboard, Sherlock. Better CarPlay dashboard. So anyone who uses CarPlay, I'm actually a big user of this. Siri no longer goes full screen when you use it. You actually carry on watching your music play. And Siri doesn't go full screen, so there's advantages there. iPad OS. So same improvements as iOS 13. Better split view, including you have multiple windows open per app. So if you've got 2 Word documents, for example, you can have them both open in split view. New home screen with widgets. So they might be going away from somewhere else. Don't know if it's in the public stuff or not. They might be coming back to somewhere else. So cool. Full page markup in pretty much anything and everything you can see on the iPad screen. Sidecar, which I'm looking forward to a lot. Essentially, you can have your iPad as a secondary screen for a Mac in Catalonia. You can also use it like a Wacom tablet as well. So you can use Apple Pencil drawing on it to do stuff on the Mac. Rocket ships. Some people will know what that means. You've got gesture-based, copy, paste, and undo. So rather than having to kind of like hold stuff and sort of half tap to get the copy menu, you've got some gestures around that. With websites, it will default to Safari's desktop view. So things like WordPress, Apple Business Manager, and Apple School Manager now will be fully accessible through iPad OS. Built-in SMB3 support in the Files app. You can connect to SMB file shares through an iPad OS without an additional app. More Sherlocking, I think, but anyway. Built-in USB external pen drive support in the Files app as well. So you can have a dongle on the bottom of your iPad. But it has some use cases. WatchOS, more watch faces. App Store on the watch. Calculator on the watch. All those teachers that were like, you're not going to have a calculator with you wherever you go. Not just on your phone, on your watch now. Much like Casio's as well. Activity trends, it can trend your activity progress over time. You can compare it to like last month, last year, that kind of stuff. For the females in the audience, there's period cycle tracking, so another cool improvement. Hearing health, you can get alerts for if you hear damaging levels of noise. I mean, listening to too loud. Anyway, tvOS, there's not a lot here, but for you gamers in the audience, you can use PS4 and Xbox One controllers of Apple TV. I don't know what kind of crazy handshake deals went on to make that a possibility, but awesome. Bluetooth handshakes. It works. macOS 10.15, otherwise known as Catalina. We have a name. Still no big cats. I miss the big cats. I like it. I didn't think of it that way. It's a leaner cat. iTunes is being split into music, Apple TV, and Apple Podcast apps. Your device syncing now happens in your Finder window. Sidecar, already spoke about. Pretty sweet. Screen time. For people who are big users of screen time, personally, I don't like to see how depressingly I've looked at computers. But it now works on macOS Catalina, so cool. Read-only macOS system volume, more on this later, sort of. And more permissions controls in a PPPC, is that enough Ps? PPPC manner for your documents, your desktops, your iCloud drive, and network volumes and external volumes. So stopping apps going off and pillaging those areas. Find My, replacement for Find My Mac and Find My iPhone, Find My Friends. Find My Friends was a weird name. But they basically combine those, the Find My Apple thing and the Find My Friends that I may have lost by doing this talk for so long, in the same app. There's a plural there. Stop it. Find My Things. Is that better? Anyway, get distracted. Another interesting use case, or interesting thing they raised up, is the ability for other Apple devices to use Bluetooth to find an offline device in some sort of mesh network mode. I'd like to see a lot more details on this, because there is some questions there. I noticed 2 days after my laptop got nicked. And last one, which I think was pretty sweet, much better accessibility through voice control. A lot more natural, a lot more kind of powerful, a way of navigating through your Mac and using your Mac purely through voice and nothing else. Mac Pro, it's back. Darth Vader bin goes, unfortunately. We now return with the a more cheese grater, somehow. Up to 12 RAM slots, up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM, up to 28 Intel Xeon cores, up to 4 terabytes of flash storage, 8 internal PCI Express slots. So we now have PCIs back. 4 double width, 3 a single width, 1's a half length. 2 times 10 gig Ethernet, matches up with the little Mac Mini. Optional Mac Pro expansion module, or the MPX. Houses a GPU up to 2 GPUs. And you can get up to 2 of those in the same device. You can have up to 4 GPUs running in that thing. Might cost an arm, a leg, and probably a house, but it's going to run like the blazes. Optional Apple PCI Afterburner card. Hardware acceleration designed for hardware and coding tasks. Not my area of expertise, but sounded impressive. T2 chips built into it. One of the last Macs doesn't have one. Optional rack mount kit. So no more angle grinders and that kind of stuff. Optional wheels. So you can support. It's a portable server. Starting at. I suspect they'll be attached, unfortunately. So you can have a single kind of like skateboard type thing rather than a. Anyway, starting at about $6,000 US, coming out in fall this year. That's awesome for us local people. Right, the new Apple Pro Display XDR, 32-inch 6K display. Couldn't get enough Ks. Beyond high dynamic range, they're calling it XDR or extreme dynamic range. Super good, apparently. I'm not a display nut, but it sounded pretty cool. I think Dan's losing himself. $5,000 US. It does include a standard stand. There's none of this, if you don't buy a stand, you get no stand. Yes, there is a pro stand available for an extra $1,000 US. Kinds of additional movement options, magnetic quick releases, etc., etc. My understanding is for $6,000 for that type of thing is still a bargain. Personally, I think a lot of designers are probably going to have their own setups with Visa mounts. If you've got that kind of a setup, you pay another $200 for the Visa mount, and you save yourself $800 on buying an expensive stand. So, still looking at maybe $5,200 for what apparently is an amazing piece of kit. Again, it's coming out in fall this year as well. I think it was on the recent podcast. It was mentioned something like if you're buying like 30 odd, you could probably buy a car with the difference you'll save off other monitors. So people taking the mick for a grand stand rather than saying, well, $6,000 with a professional stand, professional monitor, blah, blah. Anyway. We'll come back to that. Right. Going to the WWDC videos. We'll take questions at the end, you lot. Shut up. That's worth watching, all the security stuff. I'll leave that there for a few seconds just to get QR code. Again, it's WWDC. Shut up. It's a WWDC session video, so I can't talk about it much, but watch it if you can. Also available on the iOS WWDC app. Cheers, Rich, for that shout out. That's an amazing app. You can stream them all, watch them back later, that kind of stuff. Watch new in Apple file systems. Imaging. Watch that one. I strongly suggest watching that one. There's a lot of detail about the read-only system volume. Portals, I think portals they were calling them rather than the hard links and soft links, and I can't remember what the term was. Firm links is what is the Apple term for them, but portals people are calling them as well. Watch the video to find out why. Mystery. Before we get too far on the imaging, check out Armin's post here. There's a lot more to imaging than just ASR, and he has a rather nice essay on the subject that I do agree with completely. Right. What's new in managing Apple devices? Most of you are here because you manage Apple devices. That tells you what's new in them. Therefore, watch. Nothing, apparently. I mean, watch it, please. It will save you a lot of aggro in the future. Rich Troutman's got some amazing notes, as he always does when he attends. That's his blog post. It will link to the developer forums, where he's then allowed to post a lot more information without worrying about any NDAs and that kind of stuff. So go to his blog post, go to the link. That'll take you to a summary of all of the sessions that he attended and got notes for, and then Q&As with those. Cool. That URL is wrong. I noticed it about 10 minutes ago. The QR code is correct. And when I put the slides up, that'll be correct as well on the Untitled website. But that's got a nice write-up on there as well from Ground Control. Just a good general summary of the things that are coming with new with Mac management. Again, I don't want to risk any NDA stuff, so I'm not going to talk about them. But if other people want to, and I want to link to them, then I'm trying to be good. Paul Bowden, head of Microsoft development for Mac, did a nice video on about Microsoft, Catalina, and that kind of stuff. It's like 5-10 minutes long, worth a watch. I think his YouTube channel is quite good to subscribe for like upcoming Office changes and that kind of stuff if you're really into managing that side of things for your environments. Right, takeaways. Watch those WWDC videos and any others that might seem interesting to yourselves. Sign up for your Apple Seed programs. Apple Seed will have details of betas that are even more under NDA. Sign up for that.
With a managed Apple ID now.
You can get
Apple Seed with a managed Apple ID now.
Soothing tones of Neil Martin. You can get, as you just said quite rightly, you can get access to Apple Seed through managed Apple IDs, whether that's Business Manager or School Manager. I wasn't quite sure. But yeah, go, just get access however you can. There's microphones coming around. You can't wait for a Q&A session that's not actually on my list.
Sorry, Darren. The invites went out this week for if you're on Appleseed before, I think, and you got a managed Apple ID that going that route. So I presume, or certainly I got an email, and I'm not special on that stuff anyway. So I think other new folks who haven't had Appleseed before could possibly go that route. Although speak to your Apple SEs, etc., around that stuff. But they've opened the program up. Please sign up. Please test the stuff.
I don't want to quite say beg, steal, or borrow, but get access to Appleseed if you're doing a lot of work with Macs, and try and carve out time each year around this time of year to test the betas and test your environments. You're not finished.
I've just been I just remembered. If you've got Apple Business Manager or Apple,
you're not making it blatant at all.
Potentially Apple School Manager. I've just
potentially
remembered that. Then you should be able to sign up for the Appleseed programs with those managed Apple IDs as of now. I'm just reiterating because I thought if it was when you'd originally signed up, but now it's potentially.
Is there a button up here I can cut him off with?
Those IDs. I just remembered that one subtle detail that I somehow forgot.
Again, watch the videos. You'll find out why. If you don't have an MDM managing your devices, get one. Get one. It was difficult. It was painful. If you care in any way, shape, or form about security of devices or managing them 100%, you need an MDM. Watch the videos to find out why. Like a weird kind of trailer or preview for these things. And if you're lucky enough, get someone to buy you a Mac Pro or Apple Display on that one. Any questions? Ben, any questions? Is it a nice one?
That's a good question.
Is it a question or is it a statement?
We can still use MCX, right?
No, you can't. You specifically, no. MCX. Any other questions about stuff that I can't really answer?
Which pub are we going to, Darren? That's a great question.
I like the prompting. I don't know, actually. We haven't got a pub planned. Where's a good pub? Our hosts, do you have any suggestions? You had to turn piss up in the brewery.
There's a Slug and Letters just around the corner. Yeah, then it's.
I think the suggestion is if you can have a few beers, just follow the crowd. Ben will sniff out a pub. It's fine.
Oh, and on another note, when we do leave, if everybody could clear all their bottles and stuff and pop them in the 2 bins there, that'll help us tremendously.
Cool. Yeah, so when you guys leave, if you don't mind just grabbing your bits and binning them and clearing stuff up, that'd be awesome. Without further ado, I'd like to thank our hosts. I'd also like to thank us. Oops, sorry.
Wayne as well.
Wayne?
And Naya.
Wayne, our host from the back.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to thank our speakers, 2 first-timers today. It was awesome. Some new talent, always good to see. And without further ado, let's get the hell out of here and get some beers.